Alma with the Cat's Pajamas, and today I'm going to show you how to make a stencil using our dies and stencil sheet. You get 6 6x6 stencils in a pack, so I'm just going to use one of them for my stencil. For this stencil, I'm using our dots cut-ups, and I've cut the stencil to the size of the die. Since I may have to run the die through several times, I'll just use some low-tack artist tape to keep everything in place. Then just run through the die cut machine. I like to run things through at least twice. If the die were a really intricate one, I would use a shim, but this one should be okay. Now just remove the tape, and I have a stencil. Now what do I do with it? I'm going to use some embossing paste with this stencil on a tag. Just place the stencil where I want it to go and secure it with some low-tack tape. I like this sparkly silver embossing paste. It's really easy to use and it's so pretty. Just scoop out a little bit on the tip of my palette knife and spread a thin layer onto my stencil, just like butter on toast. See how easily it spreads? And I make sure that I get the embossing paste in every little nook and cranny. If it looks like I'm ready, then I just hold my knife at a 45-degree angle and remove the excess. And if I remove too much, I'll just spread it back on. Embossing paste is really forgiving. Then, after I scraped off the excess, I'll just put the excess paste back in the jar. No need to waste such pretty stuff. Just peel away the excess tape and lift off the stencil. Just remember to wash off the excess embossing paste from your stencil. 'Cause yeah, the stencil is washable and reusable. So pretty, right? And it'll dry so nice and sparkly. Let's set it aside to dry. For this card, I'm going to use the Singing Penguins from our Joy to the World stamp set. And because I'm going to be watercoloring this card, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I ink up the stamp. I'm using VersaFine Black. Because the stamp is such a large one, I've placed a bit of foam underneath the paper I'm stamping on. I think the foam helps give a really nice sharp image. Here's the trick. I'm going to use some clear detail embossing powder on the stamped image. Not only will the clear embossing powder set the ink, but it will help separate the colors so that they don't bleed together. This is a great technique for using Copic markers or Gamsol. You don't have to worry about the ink being too wet or melting away. Okay, we're almost ready. I just need to cut out the image and we're ready to color. Okay, you can see that I've cut out the image and the image looks really nice and shiny because of the clear embossing powder. To color my image, I'm going to be using Tim Holtz's Distress Ink. The fired brick for the red, the gray is the pumice stone, and the blue is the salty ocean. I'll just dab a little bit of color onto my acrylic block and they'll act as my palette. So let's start watercoloring. I like to lay down a little bit of water in the place that I'll be coloring in. I think it helps the color flow easier. Take my wet brush and I put it into the color. Then I start in the area that will be the darkest and then bring the color out. Remember to start light because you can always add more color. To blend, just try feathering out the color a little bit. You may want to add a little water. If the area that you're coloring gets too wet, you can always take a napkin and blot off the excess water. I'm going to color the beaks of these little guys a light gray, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my brush to get the gray the color that I want it to be. Don't be afraid to change out your brush for a smaller one if you're going to be doing a detail area. I want these berries to be very red, so I'm not going to add any water. I'll just go straight into the palette. Their little tongues I want to be a lighter red, so I'll just add a little bit of water. And now it's time for the stripes on that center hat. This is where you can see the beauty of using that clear embossing powder. The paint and the water really stay in those stripes. Always start light because you can add more. And you can always help it along a little bit with a little bit of feathering. I think that's about right. Now let's do a scarf. I'm going to be paper piecing the sheet music, so I think I want his scarf to be gray. I think I want the holly leaves to be gray as well. And then a little bit gray on their feet. That looks good. Now let's start on that last hat. A little water to help the blue flow. And then the blue. You can see how the water really helps bring the color out. More blending, a little more blue to give it a little bit more depth. I think I want to add some blue to that middle hat. Now I can go right in and add the blue. Your embossing powder really helps keep the colors in their places. Now I think I want to darken up that last hat a little bit. I think I'm going to add just a little bit of gray. Done. All we need to do is paper piece the sheet music. Here's the sheet music. I've already stamped on a piece of coordinating paper and cut it out. Now, all that's left is to attach it to the front of the penguins. See how cute? Now let's assemble the card. My card base is a piece of white 11 by 4¼ inch piece of cardstock. And I'm just attaching the blue on top of the card base. Now it's time for some pretty patterned paper. Now for more patterned paper. This is the paper that we use to paper piece the sheet music. If you're wondering what adhesive I'm using the sticky tab runner from Thermoweb. I'm just testing it out, and I kind of like it. It seems to hold really well, and I don't need that much. If tabs stick out, I can just fold them over. And now it's time for the tag. Here it is. I love how sparkly it is. Just needs a bow, don't you think? I use this lacy silvery ribbon to make a loopy bow. And I think it's so pretty. Now a bit of foam tape on the back of the tag, because you know foam tape makes everything just a little bit more special. And then this little tag at an angle. And now it's time for my penguins. A little foam tape for them too. And I think I'm going to place them right here. And for a finishing touch, I think I'm going to add some rhinestones here and there. And I've already stamped the inside. Making stencils is easy using our dies and stencil sheets. I hope you give it a try. Have a great day.